Yo guys, and welcome to a new video. Today we are talking about the Batman or Vengeance. Alright, so officially the first movie from a superhero genre has released in 2022, being the Batman. And let me just say, it is awesome to finally have a new Batman again. It's awesome to finally have a superhero movie again that isn't filled with multiverses and isn't filled with a grand scale cinematic universe at all. This is a complete standalone movie and I love it. The last time we really got that was in 2019 with the release of Joker, which is a DC movie too, which is a Batman character too, which was a great movie and it deserved the Oscars. If the Batman will do as well as Joker did on the Oscars, I don't know, but it certainly deserves some of the nominations that I will grant this movie, because I can't name one single big flaw in this movie. This is a great captured piece of art. You can say that The Batman is a superhero movie even Martin Scorsese won't hate. And of course there's a lot we can nitpick about. Let's just say, the casting. Well, we have Robert Pattinson, aka the vampire. Yeah, I know. He was phenomenal in this movie. And we can talk all we want about some nitpicks we can do. Let's just say this movie has been in production hell, struggling with COVID restrictions more than once and struggling with positive cases on the set more than once. We can say that it is a wonder that something wonderful like this came out of it. This movie is perfect in every single way. So let's just say for once and for all, Robert Pattinson is one of the greatest Batmans that has ever existed, and this movie may be one of the best Batman movies out there. It's not the best movie because The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises are still a bit better than this one, but I can see the greatest trilogy of all time growing out of this movie. If they can make such a strong first movie, it has to be perfect in the second. The Dark Knight was better than Batman Begins. The sequel to this Batman movie is gonna blow everyone away. Alright, and where do we start talking about the Batman? Let's just say that this is not your conventional Batman movie. First of all, yes, it's 3 hours long, and some scenes can feel a little bit lengthy at some points in time, but we gotta say and we gotta admit that none of the scenes felt unneeded. None of the scenes could have been cut. This movie is a perfectly crafted movie. Yes, it lasts 3 hours, but the complete 3 hours are filled. This may be one of the greatest movies where you get thrown into the story, a story that has been going on for a while before we even got to see what was happening, and it ended on a strong note, knowing that there is more to come. And that's awesome. The intro for this movie, the first 10 minutes, we start with a first kill from Paul Dano. Well, that is awesome. That is incredible. But the scene that follows after the title card for the Batman, where we see the bat signal and what it really represents in this world, is phenomenal. It's right what you needed to see where this movie is gonna go, how we're gonna get it. It's not an origin story for the Batman. It's just, we start with seeing the bad guys of Gotham, because Gotham in this world isn't a happy place where everything is going normal because there is a superhero that will stop it and everyone is afraid. No, there's a superhero, a vigilante, a hero that no one sees as a hero, and the villains and the bad guys and the crime lords in the city thrive off of it. It's great. And when you first see the bat signal in the air and everyone sees it, and the crimes that are going on and the people committing the crimes see the bat signal and get batshit scared, pun intended, it's great. It's one of the best intro sequences I've ever seen, and it certainly is the best intro sequence of a Batman movie I've ever seen. This was phenomenal and it set everything right. And what I meant with saying that the story has been going on is that the world where we are put in feels like an established world already. We know this Gotham. They don't need to introduce every character as a new character for us because we already know who they are and what they have been through, and we can guess what it has been because Batman has been Batman for 2 years. So it's really not an origin story, but it's also not a full-fledged character because Batman is still scarred. He literally says it, and he is not perfect. He makes mistakes, and mostly there's a scene where he is gliding, and every time he breaks through a window, he never lands on his feet. So that's great. Those are small details that really work for the story. But the thing the story mostly got better of was because of those riddles and was because of the Batman and Gordon trying to solve the riddles. It's not like we know what was going on and only the characters still needed to figure it out. It wasn't the other way around. It was just us and Batman and Gordon solving these riddles as we went through this movie, and it was awesome to just have that piece of investment for yourself to just for yourself make up these riddles and trying to find an answer or on who it might be, what it may represent, and that was awesome. The Riddler was the best choice they could have for a movie of this kind, for an introduction to a new Batman. Paul Dano did it perfectly. Paul Dano is like the standout of this movie. Robert Pattinson was great and is one of the best Batmans out there. And he's so full-fledged already, and he is perfect as the character. But he is just outshined a little bit by Paul Dano, who gives a stellar performance, giving everything he has, and it's awesome and perfect in every single way of the world, of the words. And whenever he's on screen, he has a presence that you just feel in your bones. There's a scene where in Arkham where it kind of feels like the interrogation scene between Batman and the Joker in The Dark Knight. It feels like that. It has the same kind of suspense in it, and it's awesome. And I think that is going to be the Oscar theme for Paul Dano. The third act of this movie is a little bit bigger than the first two acts of this movie because, well, the first two are just this crime whodunit thriller, riddle me this guy kind of thing, and the third act is more on par with like a Dark Knight Rises third act. It's really grand in scale, and it still works. It kind of takes you out of the mystery because I liked the mystery vibe of this movie so much, but the third act isn't in any way bad. It's still phenomenal, just maybe a little bit misplaced considering the rest of the movie, but still done perfectly. Another interesting thing about this movie is how little you see of Bruce Wayne's personal life. You don't see Thomas Wayne that much, you don't see Martha Wayne that much, you don't see Alfred that much, you only see him for 3 or 4 scenes in this movie. You see him like 5 minutes, but another character that you also see for like 5 or 10 minutes max is Bruce Wayne. This movie is solely focused on the Batman, and they left Bruce Wayne in the dark a little bit. And it's an interesting choice, but I still loved it. I mean, the world feels like they are gonna tell another story set in this world. It feels like there's going to be a Batman 2. And I feel like that is where we get to see how this persona of the Batman is going to grow more into Bruce Wayne and Bruce Wayne more into the Batman. I mean, Paul Dano literally said it himself in his movie. I think this is the real you talking to the Batman. And that's awesome. It was really clever to do it that way. We see almost no Bruce Wayne, but it worked in a way that was wonderful. The only thing I'm kind of gonna nitpick about is Catwoman and Falcone, because there's a dynamic between the two that I didn't really care for that much. Catwoman is great. Zoe Kravitz is awesome as Catwoman. The only thing that I bothered with was that I kind of didn't like her story that much as much as I liked the original story following the Riddler. She didn't have a bad backstory, but it was not as interesting. That's my only nitpick for that. And there is a piece where you can see a connection between Falcone and Catwoman, and they did not they didn't do anything with it. So if they just had left that part out, this movie wouldn't have suffered at all. Gordon and the NY Gordon and the GCPD were awesome, and they had so much to do in this movie. Especially Gordon with Batman was like the greatest dynamic duo I've ever seen in a movie. They were just so perfect trying to solve these riddles together. And the GCPD, well, it was great to see the corruption that was going on between and in Gotham, so that was kind of awesome. So I really liked everything about them. But the most standout side character must be the Penguin. Colin Farrell did such a great job in this. He really transformed. I too was on the side of I don't see this guy as a penguin, especially after seeing Danny DeVito as the Penguin. This is a complete other guy, and it surely worked for the best. And Colin Farrell did everything he had, and I want to see more of him. And he was just a side character in this movie, but I feel like he is going to grow into the new Riddler or new Falcone in this universe, so we can see where his influences will go. And it's not the last we see of him, and I'm so happy that he was as perfect as he was, because he was really, really fucking great. But maybe one of the biggest surprises came from Andy Serkis as Alfred, because up to the point where I was watching the movie, I still was thinking like, I don't see Andy Serkis as Alfred. But then he came on screen and he was great. I really loved him. He will never top Michael Caine as Alfred, but he still was really, really, really good. And I really liked it. The movie had a great cinematography with some great shots and some great artworks in it. So I really loved that. The pacing was very good for a 3-hour movie. It doesn't really feel like 3 hours. The first act is a little bit slow, the second act too, but it is needed to get this bombastic third act. So that is all great, and that was all good, and I really, really liked the aspects of feeling, suspense, pacing, and everything that they did to give you the feel of a corrupt Gotham, and they really succeeded. In the end, The Batman is one of the best comic book movies out there. It's certainly one of the best movies of 2022, and it's probably gonna be on my list on #1 for a long time. I feel like we now have the best superhero movie of this year already, and I really love The Batman. The Batman gets a 943 out of 1,000 for me, or a 9.4 out of 10. Let me know in the comments down below, have you seen The Batman? What did you think of it? What did you think of the Riddler? And what did you think of Robert Pattinson as this iconic character? Is it your favorite, or do you still prefer Ben Affleck, Christian Bale, Michael Keaton, George Clooney, or the other guys? Let me know in the comments down below, and because I'm really excited. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.